Faith over fear. This is not just a phrase. It is a way of life that defines the difference between those who surrender to the weight of their worries and those who rise above them with the wings of belief. Faith is not the absence of fear, but the strength to move forward even when fear whispers that you can't. It is the invisible force that turns impossible mountains into manageable paths. In every moment of life, you will face uncertainty in your job, your family, your health, or your dreams. Fear will always arrive first. It will paint pictures of failure and disappointment. It will tell you stories of what might go wrong. But faith steps in like a calm voice saying, even if I don't see the whole staircase, we'll still take the first step. Faith doesn't remove the storm, gives you the courage to walk through the rain, knowing that sunshine will return. Imagine a farmer who plants seeds in dry soil. He has no guarantee that rain will come, yet he sows them with hope. That is faith. Or think of a mother waiting for her child to recover from illness. Her prayers, her patience, her tears, they are all acts of faith. Every successful person, every visionary, every leader once faced the same uncertainty, but they chose belief over doubt. They trusted that the path would unfold as they moved forward. Faith transforms ordinary people into warriors. When Prophet Muhammad and his companions stood outside the mighty fortresses of Khaybar, they were outnumbered, outarmed, surrounded by walls that seemed impossible to break. Yet they did not let fear dictate their hearts. They believed in Allah's promise, the justice of their cause, and in the power of steadfastness. And when Hazrat Ali lifted the banner with unwavering trust, his strength came not from muscles, but from pure faith. The belief that if Allah is with you, no fortress can stand against you. Daily life, we all face our own Khaybars. For some, it's a financial struggle. For others, it's heartbreak, loss, or a test that seems endless. These are the fortresses that appear unbreakable. But faith reminds us that the same God who parted the sea for Moses, who raised the dead for Jesus, who strengthened Muhammad in the face of armies, that same power lies within the believer who refuses to give up. Fear will tell you to retreat, to wait for perfect conditions, to protect yourself from failure. Faith will tell you to move, to act, speak, to trust that even if you fall, you will rise again. Every time you say, I can't, you hand victory to fear. Every time you say, I believe, you reclaim your strength. Faith gives meaning to struggle. It turns pain into purpose and loss into learning. A person of faith walks through life with quiet confidence. Even when the road is dark, they keep walking because they know dawn always comes. Fear makes your world small. Faith makes it limitless. Fear says, what if I fail? Faith says, what if I fly? Fear looks at problems. Faith looks at possibilities. Fear sees giants. Faith sees victory. Fear builds walls. Faith builds bridges. When you live by faith, people will notice. They will see that you are not shaken by what shakes others. They will wonder where your calmness comes from, how you still smile in the storm. And that is how you inspire, not by preaching, but by living. Faith gives your actions a quiet power that touches others without words. You become a source of hope, a light for those lost in their own doubts. Even a simple act like showing kindness to someone who wronged you can be faith in action. The belief that goodness will return, even if not immediately. There will be times when your faith is tested, when prayers seem unanswered, when delays feel like denials, when silence feels unbearable. In those moments, remember that faith is not proven when life is easy. It is proven when nothing makes sense. The Prophet once said that the most tested people are the most beloved to Allah. Every hardship you face is not to break you, to build you. Diamonds are formed under pressure, and so are believers. Faith refines your soul, teaches you patience, anchors you in peace that no storm can steal. Think about how many miracles are hidden behind patience. The person who lost everything and still smiled, that is faith. The student who keeps studying despite failure, that is faith. Parent who keeps providing despite exhaustion, that is faith. The one who forgives when revenge is easier, that is faith. The woman who prays even when the world mocks her, that is faith. Faith is not found in luxury or ease. It lives in the unseen, the moments when your heart whispers, I trust you, even when I don't understand. When you begin to live by faith, your perspective changes. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start saying, what is this teaching me? You stop chasing control and start embracing surrender. You realize that every delay hides divine wisdom. Every loss carries hidden mercy, and every trial brings unseen blessings. The walls of Khaybar did not fall in one strike. They fell because the believers never gave up. Likewise, your dreams and struggles will open not by one act of strength, by continuous faith. So today, choose faith over fear. Let your heart trust even when your mind doubts. Speak words of belief even when your situation seems impossible. Walk like the outcome is already written in your favor. The world may tell you to be realistic, but faith tells you to be limitless. You may not know how, you may not know when, you must know who. The one who brought you this far has not left you. Keep believing, keep striving. Remember, faith doesn't promise a life without storms, but it promises that no storm will drown you. Faith over fear. The heart of every victory begins here. Faith is the silent whisper inside your soul that says, I can. Even when the world shouts, you can't. It is the invisible bridge that carries you over the rivers of doubt. Fear tells you to stay where you are, to protect yourself from pain, to avoid failure. But faith tells you to rise, to take the step. Trust that something greater is guiding your path. It doesn't promise that life will be easy. Promises that you'll never be alone in the storm. When you believe, truly believe, you create energy that fear can't survive in. Look around. Every story of greatness begins with someone who chose faith instead of fear. When Hazrat Ali stood before the gates of Khaybar, it wasn't his sword that made history. It was his unshakable belief that Allah was with him. His faith turned impossible walls into doors of victory. The same is true in our daily lives. The person who starts a small business despite failure, the student who studies even after rejection, the mother who keeps praying when the world gives up. These are modern heroes of faith. Fear will come disguised as logic, whispering that your dream is too big or your strength too small. But faith replies, I have a Lord who can turn stones into springs and darkness into dawn. Faith is not loud or showy. It is quiet strength that says, I'll take one more step. It doesn't mean you won't cry or feel afraid. It means you keep moving anyway. Every time you stand back up after falling, every time you forgive when it hurts, every time you choose hope over despair, that is faith over fear. Of the farmer who plants seeds not knowing when the rain will come, or the sailor who sets out despite dark clouds. Their courage is faith. Life is not about waiting for certainty. It's about trusting that every challenge hides a blessing. When you act in faith, you open the door for miracles. You begin to see that setbacks are not punishments. They are preparations. That rejection is redirection. That pain is polishing your purpose. Fear keeps you in the prison of what if, But faith gives you freedom to say, even if it's hard, I'll try. Even if it's slow, I'll move. Even if I fail, I'll rise. Faith gives meaning to your struggles. It teaches you that your story is not over until victory arrives. Sometimes faith looks like silence, like waiting, like tears, patience. But in that waiting, your soul grows stronger. It learns to rely not on people, not on plans, but on the one who never fails. Faith whispers to your heart, what is written for you will never miss you. What misses you is never meant for you. When you walk with faith, your steps carry light. You begin to inspire others, not by your words, but by your resilience. People see how you handle difficulties and start believing they can too. Your calmness becomes contagious. Your courage becomes a mirror in which others see their own strength. That is the beauty of faith. It doesn't just lift you. It lifts those who watch you live it. Now imagine fear as a shadow and faith as the sun. The moment you let faith rise, fear disappears. You may not control what happens, but you can control how you respond. When fear says, you're not enough, faith answers, Allah is enough for me. When fear says, you'll lose, faith answers, even loss will lead me to something better. That is how you begin to live freely, deeply, peacefully, not because you have no problems, but because you know who holds the solution. Patience in trials. This is the twin pillar of faith. Patience is not sitting still and doing nothing. It is calm endurance when your soul burns with longing. It is holding peace in your heart while the world around you shakes. Life will test you in ways you never imagined. You will lose people, opportunities, comfort, and in those moments, patience becomes your shield. The Prophet Muhammad said, patience is illumination. It is the light that keeps you from drowning in the darkness of despair. In daily life, patience shows up in small things when you wait in traffic without anger, when you forgive someone instead of arguing, when you hold back tears and smile for your family. These little acts shape your spirit. A patient heart doesn't break easily. It bends, it adjusts, and it grows. Every delay you face is a hidden mercy. The fruit that takes time to ripen is always the sweetest. When you lose a job, patience reminds you that perhaps a better door is waiting. When you face illness, patience whispers that every pain is washing away your sins. When you feel stuck, patience teaches you that every seed needs darkness before it blooms. The world tells you that speed equals success. Allah teaches that patience equals strength. The longer the wait, the greater the reward. The companions of the Prophet were patient in hunger, in exile, in persecution, yet their patience became the foundation of an empire built on faith. They understood that ease follows hardship as surely as dawn follows night. And that's the same promise for you. When life feels heavy, do not curse the storm, learn from it. The rain that floods the earth is the same that makes it bloom. Patience doesn't mean weakness. It means power under control. It's the ability to stand firm when you want to run, to smile when you want to scream, to trust when you want to doubt. People of patience are people of quiet victory. They don't rush. They don't panic. They don't lose themselves in noise. They walk slowly, but they always reach. Faith and patience together are the twin wings of success. Faith teaches you to trust. Patience teaches you to wait. Faith gives you hope for tomorrow. Patience gives you peace today. Together, turn ordinary hearts into extraordinary souls. You can't climb the mountain in one leap. You take one steady step at a time, believing with faith and enduring with patience. So when fear knocks, answer with faith. When hardship lingers, embrace it with patience. These two virtues are the heartbeat of every great life, not because they erase problems, but because they transform them into blessings. Remember, when Allah delays something, He is not denying you, He is preparing you. Keep believing, keep waiting. One day you'll look back and realize that faith and patience were not just keys to your victory. They were the victory itself over fear. The greatest strength a person can ever hold is not in their muscles or wealth, but in their belief. Faith is the invisible power that turns weakness into courage, darkness into light, and despair into purpose. When the world feels heavy, faith whispers, keep going. It reminds you that no challenge is greater than the one who guides you. In life, often stops us before we even start. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. But faith is that gentle voice inside your heart that says, take the step, I am with you. When Hazrat Ali stood at Khaybar, facing a fortress that seemed unbreakable, it wasn't just his strength that broke through those gates, it was faith. Faith that the Almighty never leaves His believers empty-handed in our daily lives. Faith is what pushes a struggling student to study one more night when the exam seems impossible. It's what keeps a worker showing up even when the paycheck is late. It's what keeps a mother praying for her child when the doctors have given up hope. Faith is not about knowing the plan. It's about trusting the planner. When you walk in faith, you stop being afraid of the storms because you know even the winds obey His command. Fear limits you. Faith frees you. Fear says, what if I fall? Faith says, what if I fly? And even if you do fall, faith will teach you to rise higher than before. Every person who has ever achieved something beautiful in life, they first had to silence their fear with faith. Faith doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a quiet determination that says, even if I can't see the way, keep walking. It's the strength to smile through tears, to keep trying when you've failed 100 times, to stand tall when your heart feels broken. That's faith. It's the invisible fuel that keeps your soul alive when everything else fades. The truth is, faith isn't about getting what you want. It's about believing you'll receive what's best for you. It transforms you from within, teaching you patience, gratitude, and peace even in pain. Patience in trials, this is where true faith is tested. It's easy to believe when life is kind, but real strength is revealed when everything falls apart. Patience is not weakness. It's quiet endurance. It's staying calm when your plans collapse, trusting that Allah's timing is always perfect. Life will never move according to your script, and patience is the art of finding peace in the waiting. Every difficulty carries a hidden gift. When the Prophet Muhammad said, patience is illumination, he meant that patience lights your path when you can't see the end. In daily life, patience shows itself in moments when you want to react but choose to respond instead. When someone hurts you and you decide to forgive, that's patience. When you lose something you love and still say, Alhamdulillah, that's patience. When you keep working hard while others give up, that's patience. The most beautiful things in life take time to bloom flowers. Success, healing, and even peace, you can't rush them. Patience teaches you to trust the process. It teaches you that sometimes what feels like delay is actually protection. The things you desire are already written for you. They're just waiting for the right time to arrive. Think of a farmer who plants seeds. He doesn't dig them up every day to see if they're growing. He waits, waters them, and believes. That's patience, faith in motion. In the same way, every tear you shed, every prayer you whisper, every hardship you bear, They're all seeds. And when the time is right, Allah will make them bloom. The companions of the prophets, Asadabu, were patient through hunger, battles, and pain, yet they emerged with victory and peace. Their lives teach us that patience isn't passive. It's a strong, silent courage that turns suffering into success. Gratitude in every circumstance. This is the secret that changes everything. Gratitude is not just saying, thank you. It's a way of seeing the world. It turns what you have into enough and more. When you start being thankful for what's already around you, life begins to look brighter. Gratitude opens the doors of blessings because when you appreciate what you have, you attract even more good. The Quran reminds us, if you are grateful, I will surely increase you. Gratitude is the language of abundance. It tells the universe you're ready for more. In daily life, gratitude is found in simple moments. A smile from a stranger, a warm cup of tea after a long day, the laughter of children, or the gift of waking up one more morning. When you shift your focus from what's missing to what's present, your whole world changes. You realize that every breath is a blessing, every challenge a lesson, every delay a sign of divine wisdom. Even in hardship, there's something to be thankful for. Maybe it's the strength you discovered, the patience you learned, the people who stood by you. Gratitude doesn't mean ignoring pain. It means choosing to see light even in the darkness. When things go wrong, gratitude says, maybe this is making space for something better. It transforms complaints into calm and worry into worship. A grateful heart is like a garden. The more you water it with appreciation, the more it blooms with peace. When you combine faith, patience, and gratitude, you unlock the formula for inner peace. Faith gives you hope. Patience gives you strength. Gratitude gives you joy. Together, they turn ordinary people into extraordinary souls. You stop chasing happiness because you realize it's already within you. Every sunrise becomes a reminder that you're blessed to begin again. Every hardship becomes a test that shapes your character. Every small joy becomes a reason to smile. So live with faith, walk with patience, and breathe gratitude. Believe that what's meant for you will never miss you. Wait with trust, not anxiety. Thank Allah for every moment, the good and the bad, because both are gifts. The gates of Khaybar may have fallen centuries ago, but the real victory today lies within your heart. When you conquer fear with faith, hardship with patience, and sadness with gratitude. That's where your greatest battles are won. Leadership of the Prophet, his vision and mercy even after victory inspired unity. True leadership is not measured by how many people you command, but by how many hearts you unite. The Prophet Muhammad, was not just a conqueror of lands, he was a conqueror of souls. His greatness was not in the number of victories he achieved, but in the compassion he showed after those victories. His leadership was a blend of wisdom, humility, and mercy, a rare combination that transformed enemies into brothers, tribes into nations, chaos into harmony. After the Battle of Khaybar, the Prophet stood not as a ruler seeking revenge, but as a reformer seeking peace. His companions witnessed something extraordinary. The very people who had opposed him, who had insulted and fought against him, were met with forgiveness and justice. No arrogance, no cruelty, no vengeance. Instead, the Prophet offered them safety and fairness. He showed that true strength lies not in destroying your opponent, but in transforming them through mercy. This act of compassion planted the seed of unity that would grow into a civilization of faith, character, and honor. His vision went far beyond the battlefield. He wasn't just fighting for victory, he was leading humanity toward light. When most leaders use success to boast or dominate, the Prophet used it to heal and unite. Imagine a leader who, after years of persecution and war, stands before his former enemies and says, "Go, you are free." That was his heart, wide enough to forgive, wise enough to guide. His mission was not about power, but about purpose. His goal was to bring hearts together under the banner of peace, justice, and submission to one God. In daily life, this lesson shines for every person who has ever held responsibility. Whether you're a parent leading your family, teacher guiding students, or a manager leading a team, leadership is not about control, it's about influence through example. When you treat people with kindness, when you forgive instead of retaliating, when you uplift others even when you could overpower them, you are walking in the footsteps of the Prophet. His leadership teaches us that people remember not what you say, but how you make them feel. Mercy creates loyalty. Respect creates unity. In moments of victory, most people let pride take over. But the Prophet lowered his head in humility. Allah, instead of glorifying himself, that humility after success is a hallmark of spiritual greatness. In our modern lives, we often celebrate achievements with ego. I did it, I earned it, I deserve it. But the Prophet reminds us that every success is a trust, a chance to serve others, not to elevate ourselves. His example shows us that a true leader serves, listens, and forgives. His vision also teaches us the importance of long-term thinking. When he made treaties or granted amnesty, it wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. He looked beyond the moment, seeing the bigger picture. His decisions were guided by faith and foresight, not emotion. He understood that unity built on mercy lasts longer than dominance built on fear. That's why even those who once opposed him later became his most devoted followers, because they saw the beauty of his heart. In our daily struggles, we too have moments of small victories. Winning an argument, proving someone wrong, getting promoted, or being praised. Those moments test our character just as much as failure does. Do we respond with pride, or do we respond with grace? Do we use our advantage to hurt or to heal? The Prophet teaches us that the true test of leadership comes after success. When you are in a position to retaliate but choose to forgive, you rise above ordinary humanity. You reflect divine mercy. The Prophet's leadership also broke barriers of race, class, and tribe. He saw people for their character, not their background. Bilos Raid, a former slave, was elevated to one of the most honored positions, the caller to prayer. Salman al-Farsi, a Persian, was treated as a brother. Suhaib al-Rumi, a Roman, was cherished equally. This was revolutionary, a leadership built not on bloodline or wealth, but on righteousness. It showed the world that equality and respect are the foundation of true unity. Even in victory, the Prophet never forgot the value of empathy. He wept for his enemies, prayed for their guidance, and hoped for their forgiveness. His heart remained soft when others would have turned cold. That softness wasn't weakness, it was strength, because only those who have mastered their ego can master others with love. His example calls us to lead with compassion in our homes, our workplaces, and our communities. When you forgive those who hurt you, when you help those who once turned away, you are practicing prophetic leadership. Every parent who guides their children with patience instead of anger, every teacher who uplifts a struggling student, every leader who listens before judging, they carry a spark of the Prophet's light. His leadership reminds us that mercy is not a sign of a weakness, but the highest form of power. Vision is not just about seeing the future, shaping it with kindness. Unity is not forced by rules. It's built through love and fairness. So we reflect on his leadership after Khaybar and beyond. Let us learn this eternal truth. The greatest victory is not over others, but over yourself, over pride, anger, and ego. When you respond to success with humility, to hatred with mercy, and to power with justice, you don't just lead people, you inspire them. That was the legacy of the Prophet Muhammad, a leader whose mercy built an empire of hearts and whose vision still unites the world today. Leadership of the Prophet. His vision and mercy, even after victory, inspired unity. The mark of a true leader is not how he rules in times of strength, but how he behaves in moments of triumph. The Prophet Muhammad was the finest example of this truth. His leadership was not born out of power, wealth, or authority. It was born out of love, humility, and divine wisdom. When the gates of Khaybar fell and victory was in his hands, he could have chosen revenge. He could have demanded retribution for years of betrayal and hostility. But instead, he chose mercy. That single choice didn't just win a battle, it won hearts. And that is what made him the greatest leader the world has ever seen. In victory, many people lose themselves to pride. They see success as proof of superiority. But the Prophet showed the world that true victory is not in conquering others. It is in conquering the self. When he entered the conquered land, his head was bowed in humility, thanking Allah, not boasting of his strength. That humility radiated power, not the kind that intimidates, but the kind that inspires. His followers saw that greatness doesn't come from arrogance, but from compassion. His enemies saw that Islam was not a faith of vengeance, but of justice and mercy. Through his calmness and grace, he turned hostility into harmony and transformed conflict into community. Imagine that moment, years of struggle, pain, exile, betrayal, all behind him. The people who had once plotted against him were now standing before him, defeated and vulnerable. Any worldly leader would have celebrated with pride or punished with harshness. The Prophet stood there and said words that would echo through centuries. Go, for you are free. No revenge, no humiliation, just forgiveness. That act of mercy became a lesson for all humanity, that forgiveness after victory is more powerful than any sword. In our daily lives, we may not fight battles like Khaybar, but we fight emotional and personal battles every day, at work, at home, our relationships. Sometimes we win arguments, sometimes we achieve success, sometimes we gain the upper hand. And in those moments, we are tested the same way. Do we respond with ego or with empathy? When someone wrongs us and we have the power to hurt them back, do we choose revenge or forgiveness? The Prophet teaches us that true leadership is shown not when you have no power, but when you have all the power and still choose mercy. Think of the times you've been wronged. Someone gossiped about you. Someone betrayed your trust. Someone insulted you. The natural reaction is to strike back, to make them feel the pain they caused. But the prophetic example tells us something greater, that forgiveness heals the forgiver more than the forgiven, brings peace to your soul, not just to your circumstances. When you let go of grudges, you rise above the bitterness that eats at your heart. You show that your strength is not in retaliation, but in restraint. The Prophet's leadership also shows the importance of vision, to see beyond the moment, beyond the conflict, beyond the pain. He didn't just see people as they were. He saw what they could become. The very people who once stood against him became his allies because he believed in transformation, not destruction. He taught his companions to look at the world not through anger, but through understanding. Kind of leadership builds unity because it focuses on healing, not dividing. In today's world, where leaders often rule through fear and dominance, the Prophet A led through love and justice. He never demanded respect. He earned it. His followers didn't obey him out of fear, but out of deep affection and trust. Knew he would never ask of them what he would not do himself. That integrity is what made his leadership timeless. Even his harshest critics could not deny his honesty and mercy. That's why centuries later, people of all faiths still study his example as the gold standard of leadership. Every parent, teacher, or employer can learn from him. When you lead with compassion, people don't just follow your words, they follow your example. When you treat others with fairness, even when you have the power to do otherwise, you earn respect that no position or title can buy. The Prophet showed that leadership is not about ruling over people, but about serving them. The one who serves with sincerity leads with love. When we look around our world today, we see division, anger, and ego-driven leadership. But the prophetic model reminds us that unity cannot be forced. It must be inspired, and inspiration comes only from mercy. It is mercy that turns enemies into friends, and it is humility that turns victory into legacy. We practiced even a fraction of his character in our personal lives. If we led our families with patience, treated our co-workers with respect, forgave our friends with ease, we would find peace spreading in our hearts and in our communities. The Prophet never saw leadership as privilege. He saw it as responsibility. Every decision he made was rooted in care for others. His vision was not just to win wars, but to build hearts. His mercy was not just an emotion. It was a strategy for peace. That's what made his leadership so enduring. So the next time you find yourself in a position of strength, when someone wrongs you, when you achieve something great, when you have the choice to retaliate, remember the Prophet at Khaybar. Remember the humility of his bowed head, the gentleness of his voice, the forgiveness of his heart. True victory is not when others fall before you. It is when you lift them up, even after they've fallen. That is the kind of leadership that changes the world. And that is the kind of leadership the Prophet Muhammad gave to humanity. His vision built unity, his mercy built love, and his example continues to build hearts long after his time. Leadership of the Prophet A's, his vision and mercy, even after victory, inspired unity. Greatness in leadership is not shown in moments of comfort, but in moments of power. When a person holds strength in their hands, when they have the right to retaliate, but choose forgiveness instead, is when true character shines. The Prophet Muhammad was the perfect example of this principle. His leadership wasn't about conquering lands or gaining authority. It was about healing hearts, uniting people, creating peace where there was once hatred. His vision was deep. His mercy was endless, and through both, he taught humanity what real leadership means. The first key quality that defined the Prophet's leadership was vision, the ability to see beyond the present, beyond the conflict, beyond the pain. When he led his companions, he wasn't just thinking about winning a battle or defending a city. He was building a generation, shaping a nation, and planting the seeds for centuries of faith and civilization. At Khaybar, after years of hardship and struggle, he stood victorious, yet his heart was focused not on revenge, but on the future. He knew that forgiveness could build unity in ways that punishment never could. His vision was to turn enemies into allies and doubters into believers. That's what true leadership looks like, not short-term wins, but long-term transformation. In our daily lives, this same lesson applies. A person with vision doesn't get trapped in the moment of anger or frustration. They see beyond it. When someone hurts them, they ask, what can I learn from this? How can I respond in a way that builds, not breaks? A visionary leader at home forgives their child's mistake and teaches with love instead of shouting. A visionary manager at work uplifts their team even when targets aren't met. A visionary friend doesn't end relationships over small misunderstandings, but works toward reconciliation. Vision means having the wisdom to see potential in people even when they disappoint you. It means leading with purpose, not pride. The prophet A saw potential in every person. Where others saw flaws, he saw possibilities. When people mocked him, he prayed for them. When they fought him, he invited them to truth. His leadership turned foes into followers, not through fear, but through faith. He didn't build walls, he built bridges. That's why, even after victory, when the world expected him to seek revenge, he chose unity. Because his vision wasn't about defeating others, it was about guiding them. The second key quality was mercy, the foundation of his leadership. Mercy is not weakness, it is the highest form of strength. It takes courage to forgive, to stay calm when provoked, to respond with kindness when faced with hostility. After the conquest of Khaybar, the prophet A had every reason to be harsh. Years of betrayal, battles, and suffering had led to that moment. But instead of seeking revenge, he offered peace and justice. He ensured the defeated people were treated with dignity. This act of compassion did more to spread Islam than any sword could ever do. It melted hearts that years of war had hardened. His mercy turned victory into unity. Mercy in daily life is one of the hardest, yet most beautiful traits to practice. When someone wrongs you, it's easy to respond with anger. But mercy asks you to rise above that. It's when you forgive a friend who betrayed your trust because you value peace more than pride. It's when you speak softly to your parents, even when you disagree. It's when you smile at someone who ignored you yesterday. These are small moments, but they reflect great strength. The prophet A showed that mercy isn't limited to grand gestures. It's a way of life. Every smile, every act of kindness, every word of comfort carries mercy within it. When mercy and vision walk together, hearts are healed and unity is born. That is what made the prophet's A leadership eternal. He saw what others could become, and he loved them enough to help them get there. His mercy didn't depend on who a person was, friend or enemy, rich or poor, strong or weak. His vision didn't end with victory. It extended to building a community rooted in justice, forgiveness, and faith. In our world today, people often mistake leadership for control, giving orders, asserting power, demanding obedience. But the prophet A led through love. He didn't shout to be heard. His character spoke louder than words. His followers obeyed him, not because they feared him, because they trusted him. That trust was born from his mercy, strengthened by his vision, and sustained by his humility. Even at the height of his success, he remained grounded. He mended his own clothes, shared his food, prayed for his people, even those who hurt him. His leadership wasn't about status. It was about service. Imagine if today's leaders, teachers, parents, or employers followed that same model. Imagine homes where parents lead with patience, not anger. Workplaces where bosses guide with care, not criticism. Communities where people forgive instead of fight. The prophet's example teaches that leadership is not about having authority. It's about inspiring hearts. His vision made him a guide. His mercy made him beloved. In victory, he chose forgiveness. In power, he chose humility. In leadership, He chose service. That is why his name still inspires billions of souls centuries later. His leadership united tribes that once hated each other, healed hearts that once carried bitterness, built a nation upon love and justice. So in your own life, whether you lead a family, a classroom, a team, or even just yourself, lead like the Prophet A. Have vision that looks beyond today's struggle. Mercy that softens every heart you touch. When you combine those two, you create peace around you. You become a source of light in a dark world. The Prophet A showed that unity doesn't come from rules. It comes from love. That love begins with mercy, guided by vision. True leadership is not about how many people stand behind you. It's about how many hearts you lift along the way. That was the leadership of the Prophet Muhammad, a visionary, merciful and eternal. His vision united nations. His mercy transformed humanity. And through his example, we are reminded that the greatest leaders are not those who command, but those who care, those who see with wisdom and act with compassion, just as he did in victory and in every moment of his blessed life. Leadership of the Prophet, his vision and mercy, even after victory, inspired unity. Greatness is not in the crown one wears, but in the heart one carries. The Prophet Muhammad A. proved that true leadership is not about dominance, but about guidance. His character was a light that shone brighter than any sword, his mercy deeper than any ocean, and his vision broader than any empire. When victory was in his hands, when he could have ruled through fear, he chose forgiveness. When others would have taken revenge, he offered reconciliation. When others would have glorified their strength, he bowed his head in humility before his Lord. That is what made him not just a leader of men, but a leader of hearts. The first quality that defined the Prophet A was vision, the ability to see beyond the present moment and into the soul of humanity. When most leaders saw enemies, he saw potential believers. When others saw war, he saw opportunities for peace. His vision was not limited to conquering territories. It was about conquering hearts with truth. After the Battle of Khaybar, when his army achieved victory, his eyes were not on spoils or power. They were on unity, faith, the creation of a society built upon justice and love. That's what made him extraordinary. His sight was not bound by the horizon. It was guided by revelation in daily life. This vision is what separates great people from ordinary ones. A visionary parent doesn't just discipline their child for mistakes. They guide them to learn and grow. Visionary teacher doesn't see weak students as failures. They see seeds of greatness waiting for care. Visionary friend doesn't abandon you when you're lost. They remind you who you are. Prophet A showed that vision means believing in people even before they believe in themselves. It means seeing hope, hope where others see hopelessness. It means planting peace in hearts that have only known pain. His leadership teaches us that when we lead with vision, we transform not only circumstances, but souls. The second pillar of his leadership was mercy, a softness that could calm storms, a forgiveness that could melt the hardest hearts. The Prophet Allah's mercy was not selective. It extended to friends and foes, believers and non-believers, humans and even animals. When the people of Taif rejected him and stoned him until his feet bled, he didn't curse them. He prayed for their guidance. When the Quraysh who had expelled him from Makkah stood defeated before him years later, he could have punished them. Instead, he said, "Go, for you are free." These words turned centuries of hatred into waves of peace. His mercy didn't just change lives, it changed history. In our daily lives, mercy is the glue that holds relationships together. It is when you forgive a loved one's harsh words because you value peace more than pride. It's when you smile at someone who ignored you yesterday. It's when you help those who once doubted you. Mercy doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. It takes more strength to forgive than to fight. It takes more power to stay calm than to retaliate. The Prophet A showed that the strongest people are not those who can defeat others, but those who can forgive others. His leadership teaches that mercy is not a reaction, it's a choice that always leads to unity. The third quality that completed his leadership was humility, the quiet grace that made him approachable to the poorest and the most powerful alike. After victory, he didn't sit on a throne or wear gold. He lived simply, eating dates, mending his own clothes, sitting among his companions as one of them. When people came to him trembling, he would say, "Calm down. I am only the son of a woman who used to eat dried meat." His humility wasn't an act. It was his nature. Even in victory, bowed his head, acknowledging that success belongs to Allah alone. This humility is what made him love beyond measure, because power never changed his heart. In our lives today, humility is rare but essential. It's when a leader gives credit to their team instead of claiming it all. It's when a parent apologizes to their child after being too harsh. It's when a person achieves success but stays kind to everyone, no matter their status. Humility keeps success pure. It reminds us that we rise not by pushing others down, but by lifting them up. The Prophet showed that humility doesn't lower your value, it elevates it. People followed him because they felt seen, valued. His greatness was that he never acted greater than anyone. Together, these three qualities, vision, mercy, humility, built the foundation of his leadership and the unity of his nation. Vision guided him to see the bigger picture. Mercy allowed him to heal broken hearts, and humility kept his power grounded in sincerity. When these three come together, they create a kind of leadership that transcends time. It is a leadership that doesn't just manage people, it inspires them. Doesn't just rule bodies, it reaches souls. Every person can carry a spark of that leadership in their own life. When you make decisions with vision, when you treat others with mercy, and when you live with humility, you reflect the light of the Prophet. You become a source of peace in your home, a source of trust in your community, a source of love wherever you go. The Prophet A didn't lead by fear, he led by faith. He didn't build walls, he built bridges. He didn't command obedience, he inspired devotion. His leadership after victory showed the world that real power lies not in control, compassion. And that is why, even centuries later, his example continues to guide leaders, heal hearts, and unite humanity. So, the next time you stand at the peak of success, remember his humility. The next time you face conflict, remember his mercy. The next time you're unsure of your path, remember his vision. Because true leadership isn't about how high you rise, it's about how deeply you touch the lives of others. The Prophet Muhammad A didn't just lead people in his time, he continues to lead hearts across time. Through his vision, his mercy, his humility that inspired unity after every victory. Bravery of Hazrat Ali's, a timeless example of devotion and heroism. Courage is not simply standing tall on the battlefield. It is standing firm in faith when the world trembles. Hazrat Ali, the Lion of Allah, was more than a warrior. He was a symbol of unshakable devotion, humility, and sacrifice. His bravery was not born out of anger or pride, but out of love for Allah and his messenger A. Each swing of his sword, Zulfikar carried the weight of sincerity, faith, and justice. His heart was fearless because it was filled with conviction. When others hesitated, he stepped forward. When others doubted, he believed. When others sought safety, he sought truth. His courage was not merely physical. It was spiritual, moral, and eternal. Hazrat Ali's Ray was raised in the house of the Prophet I, learning firsthand what faith, truth, and honor truly meant. From a young age, his heart was molded by revelation, his soul was strengthened by prayer, and his hands were trained not just to fight, but to protect righteousness. When the Prophet A called people to Islam, Hazrat Ali, Ray was the first among the youth to accept it, without hesitation or fear of rejection. That decision alone showed the purity of his heart, for true bravery begins when one dares to stand alone for the truth. He wasn't following the crowd. He was following the light of guidance. And that light never left his path. His heroism was most evident in moments when fear could have dominated anyone else. During the night of migration, Hijra, when the Quraysh had plotted to assassinate the Prophet, it was Hazrat Ali's Ray who volunteered to sleep in the Prophet's bed, knowing death could come at any moment. He didn't think twice. His love for the Prophet I was stronger than his fear of death. As he lay there under the shadow of swords, the world saw not just a young man resting, but a believer surrendering his life for his faith. That night became a symbol for every generation that true devotion is not proven by words, but by sacrifice. In the Battle of Khaybar, his bravery reached legendary heights. The Muslims faced a fortress that seemed impossible to conquer. Many had tried to break through, but none succeeded. Then the Prophet A declared, "Tomorrow I will give the manor to a man who loves Allah and his messenger, and Allah and his messenger love him." The next morning, he called Hazrat Ali's Ray, who, despite an eye infection, stepped forward. The Prophet A applied his blessed saliva to Ali's eyes. His vision was instantly restored. With the flag in his hands and faith in his heart, Hazrat Ali's Ray advanced toward the fortress like a storm of light. The gates of Khaybar were massive, made of iron and wood, designed to withstand armies. Yet, with divine strength and unshakable resolve, Hazrat Ali's Ray tore the gate off its hinges and used it as a shield. His courage that day wasn't just about physical might. It was a reflection of spiritual strength. It was faith in action. It was the kind of bravery that comes only when your trust in Allah outweighs every fear in your heart. Moment in Khaybar became a living testament that when your heart is anchored in faith, no obstacle can stand in your way. In daily life, this bravery teaches us something powerful. Courage doesn't always mean fighting on a battlefield. Sometimes it means standing up for truth when everyone else stays silent. It means doing what is right even when it costs you comfort. It means choosing honesty over popularity, kindness over revenge, and patience over anger. Hazrat Ali's Ray's courage reminds us that the mightiest battles are often fought within. The battle between faith and fear, between ego and humility, between worldly desires and eternal truth. When you conquer those inner wars, you become unstoppable. His bravery also reflected deep devotion, a love for Allah that guided every step. For him, fighting was not about power or pride. It was about protecting justice and preserving truth. In every confrontation, his sword was guided by principle, not impulse. He never struck in anger. He fought only for righteousness, never for revenge. That is why his bravery is timeless. It was bravery rooted in purity. His heroism was not the kind that ends when the battle ends. It lives on in hearts that seek courage through faith. In our world today, where courage is often measured by fame or force, Hazrat Ali's Ray reminds us that the truest bravery lies in faithfulness. It's the courage to pray when you feel hopeless. It's the strength to forgive when you've been wronged. It's the patience to keep trusting Allah when life tests you. Just as Hazrat Ali's Roe faced his enemies without fear, we can face our challenges with the same spirit, knowing that when faith leads the way, fear loses its power. He once said, "Fear Allah, you will have no cause to fear anyone else." Those words still echo through time, reminding us that devotion gives birth to courage. When your heart belongs to Allah, no darkness can intimidate you, no difficulty can defeat you. Hazrat Ali's life teaches that real heroism is not about glory, but about grace. It's about fighting for what's right with love in your heart, not hatred. Even in his final moments, his courage never wavered. When he was struck by the poisoned sword while in prayer, he said calmly, "By the Lord of the Kaaba, I have succeeded." Only a man of ultimate faith could say such words in the face of death. His bravery was not just in life, it was in how he faced death peacefully, knowing he had lived for truth. Hazrat Ali's bravery continues to inspire millions because it represents the perfect union of strength and submission, of courage and compassion. His story is not locked in history. It lives wherever a believer stands firm in faith. Wherever a person chooses devotion over doubt, his life reminds us that being brave doesn't mean never feeling fear. It means acting with faith despite it. So in moments when life feels heavy, when fear clouds your heart, remember Hazrat Ali's R.A., the man who faced swords with a smile, who slept under threat with peace, and who fought not for fame, but for faith. Let his example awaken the lion within your own soul, a courage born from devotion, a heroism that stands timeless, radiant and eternal. Bravery of Hazrat Ali's Ray, a timeless example of devotion and heroism. When the world speaks of courage, often remembers warriors who fought battles and conquered lands. But the courage of Hazrat Ali's Ray was of a different kind, a courage born not from pride or ambition, but from faith and devotion. His bravery was not only on the battlefield, it lived in his words, his choices, and his humility. He was not fearless because he didn't know fear. He was fearless because he knew Allah. When faith becomes your foundation, no mountain feels too high, no trial too heavy, and no enemy too strong. The first essence of his bravery was devotion, a deep, unwavering connection with Allah and his messenger that gave meaning to his every action. From his youth, Hazrat Ali's Ray was not motivated by the desire for glory, but by a burning love for truth. When the Prophet called people to Islam, many hesitated, but Ali's Ray, still a boy, accepted without question. He saw what others could not see, the light of guidance in the message of the Prophet This early devotion became his lifelong compass. He lived not for wealth or status, but for the pleasure of Allah. True devotion is not just in words, it is in the heart that stays loyal even when tested. In our own lives, we often claim love for our faith, for our families, or for our purpose. But devotion is proven when sacrifice is demanded. Hazrat Ali's R.A. taught that devotion means giving your all, not when it is easy, but when it is hardest. Think of that night when the Prophet was surrounded by assassins and had to leave Mecca secretly. Who among the companions was willing to take his place in the bed, knowing death could arrive before dawn? Hazrat Ali's R.A. volunteered, calmly lying down in that bed with peace in his heart. He didn't think about himself. He thought about the mission of Allah and his messenger. That is devotion in its purest form, trusting Allah so completely that fear has no place left in your heart. In our daily lives, this kind of devotion is rare but possible. It shows in the parent who works tirelessly for their family without complaint. It shows in the student who keeps striving despite failure. It shows in the believer who prays with sincerity even when no one is watching. Devotion transforms ordinary actions into acts of faith. When you live with devotion to your faith, your work, or your loved ones, you live with purpose. Hazrat Ali's showed that devotion is not about how much you speak, but how deeply you believe. The second essence of his bravery was heroism, but not the kind the world celebrates with cheers and banners. His heroism was built on principles, not pride. He never fought for revenge or recognition. He fought for justice, for the weak, for truth. His sword, Zulfikar, was never raised without reason. Every strike carried not just strength, but wisdom and restraint. He once said, "The bravest heart is the one that stays humble in victory and patient in defeat." That was the essence of his heroism, power balanced by mercy, victory wrapped in humility. During the Battle of Khaybar, Hazrat Ali Ray's heroism reached its peak. The Muslims faced a fortress that seemed impossible to capture. The Prophet declared, "Tomorrow I will give the banner to a man who loves Allah and his messenger, and Allah and his messenger love him." The next morning, Hazrat Ali Ray was given the banner. Despite an eye infection, he stepped forward without hesitation. The Prophet touched his eyes. By the will of Allah, they were healed. He advanced toward the massive gates of Khaybar with faith as his armor. When others saw iron and fear, he saw opportunity and trust in Allah. He tore the gates of the fortress with his bare hands, not for glory, but for the triumph of truth. His heroism was not measured by his strength, but by his submission to Allah. In our world today, heroism is not about lifting gates or wielding swords. It is about lifting burdens, standing for justice, protecting truth when the world turns away. It's the heroism of a person who refuses to lie to gain advantage, who speaks up when silence feels safer, who forgives when revenge feels easier. Hazrat Ali's Ray's heroism was quiet yet thunderous, heroism that did not end on the battlefield, but extended to every act of kindness, every moment of patience, every word of wisdom he shared. His heroism teaches that bravery is not just for warriors. It is for everyone who stands firm in faith when you face criticism but stay true to your values. That's bravery. When you go through pain but refuse to lose hope, that's bravery. When you forgive someone who hurt you because your heart values peace more than pride, that's heroism. Hazrat Ali Ray's life was a reminder that the greatest victories are not always visible. They happen within. When you conquer anger, fear, and selfishness. He lived courageously but with compassion. He fought powerfully but prayed humbly. Even his enemies respected him, for they knew his sword was guided by justice, not hatred. After battles, he would treat captives with mercy, showing that even in strength, his heart remained pure. This combination of power and tenderness, of courage and kindness, makes Hazrat Ali's Ra''s heroism timeless. In our lives, if we wish to follow even a fragment of his example, we must combine devotion with a heroism. Devotion without action is incomplete, and heroism without purpose is empty. When you live devotedly, loyal to your values and your Creator, and act heroically, facing life's challenges with faith and dignity, you begin to reflect the light of Hazrat Ali. He once said, "Do not be a slave to others when Allah has created you free." This means courage begins when you stop fearing people and start trusting Allah. When your heart is devoted to Allah, your courage becomes limitless. That is why Hazrat Ali's Ray's bravery was eternal, because it wasn't tied to worldly power. It was rooted in divine truth. So let his life remind us devotion gives you direction, heroism gives you strength, and faith gives you peace. When your heart carries all three, you too can face life's battles with the calm strength of Hazrat Ali as-Raif. His bravery was not of the sword alone. It was of the soul, of the spirit that believed deeply, acted righteously, lived fearlessly for Allah. Bravery of Hazrat Ali's Ray. A timeless example of devotion and heroism. True courage is not the absence of fear. It is standing tall despite fear, trusting Allah when everything seems uncertain, and holding firm to truth when the world chooses silence. Hazrat Ali's Ray, known as Asadullah, the Lion of Allah, was a symbol of faith-driven bravery, of devotion that never wavered, and of heroism that outlived his lifetime. His bravery was not born from arrogance or desire for fame, but from an unbreakable belief that Allah's pleasure was worth any sacrifice. His heart was unshaken because it was anchored in divine trust. His life teaches us that courage is not found in muscles or weapons. It is found in conviction, devotion, and sincerity. The first key essence of Hazrat Ali Ray's life was faith, the foundation that made him fearless. From the earliest days of Islam, he was among the first to accept the call of the Prophet. As a young boy, he didn't question or hesitate. He didn't calculate the risks or think of how society would react. He simply believed. His faith wasn't dependent on outcomes. It was unconditional. And that faith became the root of his courage. When a person believes in Allah completely, they no longer fear the opinions of others or the threats of this world. Faith gives the heart a kind of peace that no storm can shake. Think of that moment during the Prophet's migration from Mecca. The night when assassins surrounded his home. Death was waiting at the door, yet Hazrat Ali Ray lay peacefully in the Prophet's bed, ready to sacrifice his life so that the messenger of Allah could safely leave. Imagine that scene. The still night, the danger outside, a young believer lying there, eyes closed, heart calm, whispering prayers. What gives someone that kind of peace in the face of certain death? It's faith. Pure, unshakable faith. That faith is not only for warriors and saints, it's for every believer who faces fear in their daily life. In our world, faith gives us the strength to face our own battles. When you lose a job but still trust that Allah has a better plan, that's faith. When you're hurt by people but still choose to forgive, that's faith. When you keep praying in times of hardship, even when you see no change, that's faith. Hazrat Ali Ray's life teaches that when faith becomes your foundation, fear loses its power. The second essence of his bravery was devotion. A love so deep for Allah and his messenger that it transformed every part of his being. His devotion wasn't only in words, it was visible in every choice he made. Whether on the battlefield or in moments of peace, his loyalty never faded. He didn't fight for power or pride. He fought for principle. His love for the Prophet was not emotional only. It was practical, lived, and selfless. His every action was driven by a single question. What pleases Allah and his messenger? What pleases level of devotion is something that can transform ordinary lives into extraordinary examples. In our daily lives, devotion appears when a person chooses sincerity over show, when they do good without seeking praise, when they remain steadfast in prayer despite exhaustion, and when they continue serving others even when unnoticed. Hazrat Ali Ray lived a life of service. He helped the poor, stood for the oppressed, always spoke the truth, even when silence would have been safer. Devotion means doing the right thing not for the world's applause, but for Allah's acceptance. It is what makes a parent stay up through the night caring for their child, a student working hard with honesty, an employee refusing to cheat for profit, or a friend standing by another during hard times. Devotion turns every act, big or small, into worship. Hazrat Ali's raised devotion was the secret behind his power. He was strong because his heart was surrendered to Allah. The third essence that completed his greatness was heroism, but not the kind that seeks fame or recognition. His heroism was a perfect balance of strength, mercy, and humility. On the battlefield, he was fearless. His name struck awe in the hearts of enemies. Yet, when victory came, he never boasted. When others praised him, he gave all credit to Allah. That is true heroism, when you remain humble in triumph and patient in trial. During the Battle of Khaybar, his heroism became legendary. The Muslims were struggling to capture the fortress, and morale was low. The Prophet A said, "Tomorrow I will give the flag to a man who loves Allah and his messenger, and Allah and his messenger love him." The next morning, the Prophet A handed the banner to Hazrat Ali Zawray. Despite suffering from severe eye pain, he stood up without hesitation. Prophet touched his eyes, and they were healed instantly. Hazrat Ali's ray charged forward with faith blazing in his heart. When faced with the fortress gate, a structure too heavy for 10 men, he tore it from its hinges with his bare hands and used it as a shield. That moment was not just a display of physical power, it was a demonstration of divine strength born from faith. But his heroism was not limited to the battlefield. His true heroism was seen in his justice, humility, and forgiveness. When he ruled as caliph, he lived simply, no guards, no luxury, no separation from the people. He once said, "Do not let your power make you forget the weak." His heroism was about defending the truth, even when it cost him friends, comfort, safety. He showed that being heroic doesn't mean being violent or proud. It means being righteous, compassionate, unafraid to stand for what's right. In our lives today, heroism is not about fame or recognition. It's about courage, the courage to stay honest in a dishonest world, to be kind when others are cruel, to keep faith when the world feels hopeless. Every time you choose truth over deceit, mercy over anger, or patience over complaint, you mirror the heroism of Hazrat Ali Ray, faith, devotion, heroism. These three lights defined his life. Faith gave him strength, devotion gave him purpose, and heroism gave him legacy. Together, they made him a timeless example of what it means to live with courage guided by love. His bravery was not a moment in history. It was a message for eternity that the strongest hearts are those that trust Allah completely, love deeply, and serve selflessly. So when fear comes to your heart, remember his faith. When doubts cloud your mind, remember his devotion. And when life tests your courage, remember his heroism, because the path Hazrat Ali's Ray walked is not just for history to admire. It is for us to follow, one act of faith, one act of devotion, and one act of heroism at a time. Justice with enemies. The Prophet A chose fairness over revenge. True greatness is not shown in victory over others, but in how one behaves after victory. The Prophet Muhammad taught the world that real power lies not in taking revenge, but in showing justice and mercy, even to those who once sought your harm. His life was a living example that fairness is the highest form of strength. Forgiveness is the purest form of victory. Where ordinary leaders sought revenge to display authority, Prophet A displayed restraint to display character. His justice was not selective, it was universal. His mercy was not conditional, it was unconditional. The first essence of this timeless lesson is forgiveness born from strength. Anyone can forgive when they are weak. but forgiving when you have the power to punish, that is divine. When the prophet A returned to Mecca after years of persecution, humiliation, and exile, he stood as the most powerful man in Arabia. The very people who had mocked him, thrown stones at him, and forced him to leave his home now stood trembling before him, knowing that by worldly standards, their time for punishment had come. But the prophet A's heart was not built for vengeance. He asked them gently, "What do you think I will do with you today?" And they replied, "You are a noble brother and the son of a noble brother." The prophet I then said the words that changed history, "Go, for you are free." That moment wasn't just forgiveness. It was justice wrapped in mercy. He didn't forgive them because he forgot their cruelty. He forgave them because he knew that hearts could change through compassion, not through punishment. It was as if his forgiveness set their souls free along with their bodies. And indeed, many of those same enemies later embraced Islam because they saw that the messenger of Allah was not driven by ego, but by truth and mercy. In our daily lives, this lesson is profoundly relevant. We all face moments when people hurt us through betrayal, insults, or injustice. Our natural instinct is to retaliate or prove a point. But the prophet teaches that true justice is not revenge, it's choosing peace over pride. When someone wrongs you and you choose not to return evil with evil, you rise above the cycle of hatred. It doesn't mean you accept oppression. It means you refuse to become what hurts you. Forgiveness is not weakness, it's wisdom. It means you value peace of heart more than satisfaction of ego. Think of a family argument where harsh words are exchanged. One person decides to step back, to let go, to forgive, not because they are defeated, but because they are strong enough to value unity over ego. That's the spirit of prophetic justice. It's also seen when a leader treats an unfair critic with respect, when a boss corrects mistakes without humiliating an employee, or when a friend forgives without demanding apology. Justice guided by mercy heals more than punishment ever could. The second essence of this principle is fairness beyond emotion. The prophet A never allowed personal feelings to cloud his sense of justice. Whether dealing with a friend or a foe, a rich man or a poor one, his standard was the same, the truth. During his leadership in Medina, he judged cases not by favoritism or connection, but by principle. Once a noble woman from a respected tribe was caught stealing. Some companions suggested that her punishment be waived due to her status. The prophet, with deep sorrow but unwavering justice, said, "By Allah, if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, had stolen, I would have cut off her hand." His point was clear. Justice loses its soul when it bends for the powerful. Even with his enemies, he never crossed the boundaries of fairness. In battles, he gave strict commands: do not kill the old, the child, or the woman. Do not destroy homes or trees. These were not just war ethics, they were moral revolutions. He showed that even in conflict, humanity must not die. When prisoners of war were brought to him, he treated them with dignity, ensuring they were fed and clothed before his own companions. Many of those prisoners, seeing such fairness, later embraced Islam willingly. In daily life, fairness beyond emotion is one of the hardest virtues to practice. When someone wrongs us, our judgment gets clouded by anger. But the prophet A teaches that true justice is when you can see beyond pain and make decisions guided by principles, not passion. For instance, a parent who listens to both children before deciding who is right practices prophetic fairness. A teacher who grades work without favoritism, a manager who rewards effort, not flattery, or a person who admits their mistake even when it hurts their pride, all reflect the prophet's legacy of justice. Fairness doesn't mean allowing others to walk over you. It means standing firm without hatred. It's saying, I will not become unjust even when injustice is done to me. That is strength. Because justice is not about winning arguments, it's about winning hearts through integrity. The prophet A won not just battles, but hearts, because people saw that his character remained steady in every circumstance. The third essence of this principle is compassion as the heart of justice. The prophet never separated justice from compassion. His aim was never to humiliate wrongdoers, but to reform them. When people made mistakes, he corrected them gently, not through harshness. A Bedouin once entered the mosque and began urinating inside it. The companions rushed to stop him, angry and shocked, but the prophet stopped them, saying, "Let him finish." When the man was done, the prophet A calmly cleaned the area and spoke to him kindly about respecting the mosque. That man later said, "Oh Allah, have mercy on me and Muhammad and no one else." The prophet smiled and said, "You have made something vast very narrow." His kindness opened hearts that no sword could ever open. In our lives, compassion is often what transforms conflicts into connections. When someone makes a mistake and you choose to guide instead of shame, you bring them closer, not push them away. Justice without compassion creates fear. Justice with compassion creates respect. Whether you are a parent, a leader, or a friend, when your sense of fairness is gentle, you inspire loyalty, not resentment. The prophet A proved through his life that justice and mercy are not opposites. They are twins. Justice keeps society strong. Mercy keeps hearts soft. Together, they form the foundation of peace. So when life places you in a position of power, even small ones, remember his example. Be just when it's tempting to be biased. Be forgiving when it's easy to be cruel. Be fair even with those who hurt you, because that is the way of the prophet, the way that turns enemies into allies, hatred into harmony, and revenge into redemption. He taught us that the true victory is not defeating others, it is defeating the desire for revenge. When you choose fairness over fury, justice over jealousy, and mercy over vengeance, you reflect the light of his character. And in that reflection, you find peace, the peace that comes only when the heart follows the justice of the prophet Ep. Justice with enemies, the prophet A chose fairness over revenge, a lesson that echoes through the centuries, reminding humanity that true greatness is not found in how we treat our friends, but in how we treat those who have wronged us. It is easy to be kind when life flows smoothly, but real nobility is tested when our hearts burn with pain. We still choose fairness over fury. The Prophet Muhammad I, in his unmatched grace, taught that justice is not an emotion but a divine responsibility. He showed that fairness, even toward one's enemies, is not just a moral choice. It is the foundation of peace, dignity, and spiritual strength. When the prophet I entered Mecca after years of persecution, humiliation, and war, the city that had driven him away stood silent in fear. The same streets that had once echoed with insults now bowed before his victory. His enemies expected retribution, knew what they deserved by worldly standards. Yet the messenger of Allah, A, did something unimaginable. He stood before them, not as a conqueror filled with pride, but as a servant of God filled with mercy. He asked, "What do you think I will do to you today?" Trembling, they replied, "You are a noble brother and the son of a noble brother." And he said, "Go, for you are free." In that moment, he rewrote the meaning of justice. The world saw that forgiveness is not a sign of weakness. It is a declaration of strength. To forgive when powerless is one thing, but to forgive when you have the power to punish, that is greatness. The prophet could have taken revenge, and no one would have questioned his right. Yet he chose mercy, for he knew that punishment ends hostility, but fairness ends hatred. His justice was not about settling scores. It was about healing hearts. Now imagine this lesson in our everyday lives. Someone lies about you, someone betrays your trust, or someone mocks your dreams. The natural instinct is to respond in kind, to give them a taste of their own medicine. But if we pause and remember the example of the prophet, we find that choosing fairness is not about letting others win. It's about not letting anger rule your soul. When you respond with fairness instead of revenge, you preserve your dignity. You prove that you are guided by principle, not provoked by emotion. For example, consider a person at work who spreads false rumors about you to gain favor. You could easily retaliate, damage their reputation, seek revenge. But what happens when you don't? When you maintain your integrity, speak the truth calmly, let time reveal justice, people start seeing your strength. They see that you rise above negativity. That quiet restraint becomes your power. Eventually, truth finds its way, and you earn not only respect, but peace of mind. Similarly, family life, disagreements can often lead to resentment. Sometimes a relative says hurtful words or breaks trust. Many relationships end because people refuse to forgive, believing revenge brings balance. But the prophet showed that justice is not always about getting even. True justice is about restoring what's right, and sometimes that means giving love where hatred was expected. When you forgive and treat someone fairly even when they don't deserve it, you don't become weak, you become free. You release the poison of anger and embrace the peace of the prophet's example. The prophet's fairness was so deep that even in war, he set standards no leader had ever imagined. He forbade his companions from harming women, children, or the elderly. He said, "Do not destroy homes, do not cut trees, and do not harm those who do not fight you." Even toward enemies who plotted against him, he upheld justice. When prisoners of war were brought before him after the Battle of Badr, he treated them with kindness, ensuring they were fed and clothed well. Many of them, moved by such compassion, later embraced Islam. That is the power of justice blended with mercy. It changes hearts, not through fear, but through love. The prophet showed that justice must be rooted in principle, not emotion. It means doing what is right even when it's difficult, even when your heart aches to do otherwise. Justice demands that you control your ego, that you see beyond your pain, that you act with wisdom in modern life. This can be as simple as giving someone a fair chance despite your dislike, judging others by facts instead of assumptions, or being honest in situations where dishonesty could benefit you. Every small act of fairness is a reflection of the prophet's legacy. There was a time when a Jewish man accused the prophet of owing him money, grabbing his cloak harshly and speaking rudely. Instead of reacting in anger, the prophet smiled and said gently, "Give him what he is asking for." The man later admitted that he only acted that way to test the prophet's patience and justice. And upon seeing his response, he accepted Islam. This shows that justice is not only about right and wrong, it's about character. When you act fairly, even when wronged, you influence others in ways revenge never can. True fairness requires courage, the courage to remain calm when provoked, to listen when accused, and to forgive when insulted. It's easy to talk about justice, but it's hard to live by it when life tests your patience. Yet, That's when your faith grows strongest. Each time you choose fairness over revenge, you become closer to the example of the prophet. A. You learn to see that justice is not about punishment. It's about purification. Cleanses your heart from hatred and fills it with light. Think of justice as the bridge between peace and strength. Revenge destroys bridges, leaving you isolated in bitterness. But fairness builds connections. It turns trust, softens enemies, invites respect. The prophet A won hearts not because he ruled by fear, but because he ruled by fairness. His justice made the oppressed feel safe and made even his enemies feel respected. That is why his message lives on, because justice, wrapped in mercy, never dies. So the next time life gives you a chance to retaliate, pause. Ask yourself, what would bring me peace, revenge, or fairness? What would reflect the spirit of the prophet? Anger or mercy? Choose fairness, not because they deserve it, but because your soul deserves peace. Remember, the prophet A didn't just teach justice. He lived it, even when every reason said he shouldn't. To be fair with your enemies is not to lose, it's to rise above. It is to say, you may have wronged me, but you cannot control me. That is strength. That is freedom. That is the justice of the prophet. A justice that inspires the world to this day. Justice with enemies. The prophet A chose fairness over revenge, a principle that defines the very essence of greatness and leadership. Justice is easy when it favors us, but its true beauty shines when it challenges our emotions, especially in moments of anger or power. The prophet Muhammad A displayed a kind of justice that went far beyond human instinct, a justice that merged compassion, discipline, divine wisdom. His life was a living reflection of the Quranic command, do not let hatred of a people cause you to be unjust. Be just, that is nearer to righteousness. The first point we learn from the prophet's example is that true justice is not about revenge, but about righteousness. When someone hurts us, our immediate desire is to make them feel the same pain. The prophet showed that justice is not fueled by emotions, it is guided by truth. When he faced those who had once mocked, persecuted, and even tried to kill him, he did not let personal bitterness cloud his decisions. His heart was filled with mercy, even when surrounded by those who had once stood against him. Consider the most powerful example, the day of the conquest of Mecca. The prophet A entered the city not as a vengeful conqueror, but as a humble servant of Allah. Before him stood the very people who had driven him into exile, who had insulted him, stoned him, and fought endless wars to destroy him. They expected retribution, yet what came from his lips was not anger but forgiveness. Go, for you are free. These words broke centuries of arrogance and hostility in a single moment. He could have punished them and justified it as justice, but his heart chose fairness rooted in mercy. This single act redefined what justice truly means. It's not about getting even, but about restoring peace and balance. He knew that revenge only continues the cycle of hatred, but forgiveness ends it. Through fairness, transformed enemies into allies and turned hatred into harmony. In our daily lives, this principle applies deeply. When someone wrongs us at work, in family, or among friends, we have two paths. One leads to revenge, the other to justice. Revenge is emotional. It feels satisfying for a moment, but burns peace for a lifetime. Justice, on the other hand, requires strength, the strength to stay calm, to think clearly, and to act with integrity. For example, imagine being betrayed by a close friend who spreads false rumors about you. You could respond with bitterness, expose their flaws, seek to humiliate them. But if you choose fairness, you step into the prophet's path. You remain honest, dignified, let truth speak for itself. Over time, people will see your patience as wisdom and your silence as strength. That is justice, not punishing, but rising above. Justice in this sense is not passive, it's powerful. It demands control over one's ego. And that's harder than any battle. The prophet showed that fairness is not about being soft. It's about being strong enough to resist anger. When one of his enemies, a man who had caused deep harm, came seeking forgiveness, the prophet didn't turn him away. Instead, he forgave him sincerely, saying, "Today is a day of mercy, not of revenge." These words remind us that justice mixed with mercy heals what revenge can only destroy. The second key point that shines from this lesson is fairness beyond emotions, treating others rightly even when your heart is heavy with pain. The prophet never allowed personal feelings, hatred, or favoritism to influence his decisions. His justice was pure, guided only by truth and principle. There's a story of a woman from a noble tribe who committed theft. Some people came to intercede on her behalf, thinking her social status would save her from punishment. But the prophet said firmly, "By Allah, if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, had stolen, I would have cut off her hand." This statement wasn't about cruelty. It was about fairness. He reminded his people that justice cannot bend for privilege, wealth, or blood ties. Equality and justice is what keeps a society pure and strong. A person's background, tribe, or power cannot shield them from the truth. In this, the prophet showed that emotions, whether love or hate, must never overshadow fairness. In our lives, emotional fairness is one of the hardest qualities to practice. We tend to favor those we love and judge harshly those we dislike. A manager might overlook a close friend's mistake, but punish another employee for the same error. A parent might blame one child unfairly while excusing another. These small moments of bias break the foundation of justice, and over time, they destroy trust. The prophet teaches us to pause before reacting, to separate what we feel from what is right. For instance, when judging between two people in a conflict, justice demands we listen to both sides fully, even if we already have a personal opinion. Demands that we never humiliate, exaggerate, or act from impulse. Because true fairness isn't about who we like. It's about what's right. One day, a Jewish man came to the prophet with a complaint against a Muslim. Instead of immediately taking sides, the prophet listened carefully and judged in favor of the Jewish man because he was in the right. That moment shocked many companions, not because of the decision itself, but because it showed that justice in Islam transcends identity, religion, or emotion. It is not about protecting or people. It's about protecting the truth. Bringing this into modern life, we see fairness tested every day. When you are in a position to make decisions as a leader, teacher, parent, or friend, your true character is shown not by how you treat those you like, but by how you treat those who disagree with you. If you can remain fair in those moments, you reflect the light of the prophet. For instance, a teacher who grades all students honestly, without favoritism, a leader who rewards effort, not flattery, or a person who admits when they are wrong, all carry the prophet's justice in their actions. Fairness beyond emotion means your principles are stronger than your pride. It means that your desire for truth outweighs your desire to win. It's not about silence in the face of wrong. It's about balance in the face of anger. When you can treat your enemy justly, when you can separate truth from personal hurt, you step into the moral greatness that defined the prophet He showed us that justice is not only a law, it's a light that shines brighter than revenge, stronger than hate, softer than pride. The prophet didn't just preach fairness, he embodied it. His justice built trust among the oppressed, softened the hearts of enemies, and brought unity to a divided world. So let the next time you are wronged be a test of your strength. Remember, it's not what others do to you that defines your worth. It's how you respond. Choose fairness, even when it hurts. Choose calm, even when you burn with emotion. Because the one who can be fair in pain, just in anger, merciful in power, walks in the footsteps of the prophet. The one who showed that justice without mercy is incomplete. Mercy without justice is hollow. Justice with enemies. The prophet, I chose fairness over revenge. This single lesson captures the soul of the prophet's character. It is easy to be just when everything goes your way, but real justice appears when the heart is tested, when anger, power, emotion tempt you to act otherwise. The prophet showed that justice is not a reaction. It is a reflection of inner peace, self-control, and divine awareness. He proved that being fair, even to those who wronged you, is not just morality. It is a form of greatness that turns enemies into friends and hatred into harmony. The third key point we learn from this timeless example is compassion as the heart of justice. The prophet didn't separate fairness from kindness. To him, they were two parts of one light. Justice without compassion is cold. Compassion without justice is blind. But when the two are joined, create something powerful, a force that changes hearts and uplifts societies. Throughout his life, the prophet faced people who mocked him, betrayed him, and even sought his death. Yet, he never allowed bitterness to replace mercy. Even when he had every right to punish, he often forgave. His purpose was not to destroy those who opposed him, but to awaken their hearts. He knew that punishment may change behavior, but compassion changes souls. One of the most beautiful examples of this comes from the city of Taif. When the prophet went there to spread the message of truth, the people not only rejected him, but sent their children to throw stones at him until his feet bled. Exhausted and heartbroken, he took shelter under a tree. The angel of the mountains appeared and said, "If you command me, I will crush the city between two mountains." The prophet, still bleeding, whispered, "No, I hope that one day their children will worship Allah." That is compassion in the face of cruelty, justice beyond emotion. This wasn't weakness, it was strength at its highest level. Anyone can react with anger. It takes divine patience to respond with mercy. In our daily lives, we often face situations that test our emotions. When someone disrespects us, gossips about us, or tries to bring us down, the natural urge is to retaliate, to hurt them back. But the prophet teaches us that compassion is not about letting people walk over you. It's about maintaining your dignity while refusing to let hatred rule your heart. For example, imagine someone at work takes credit for your hard work. Your first reaction might be to expose them, to humiliate them publicly. But instead, if you handle it calmly, talk privately, stay professional, let your integrity speak, you win something far greater than the argument respect. People will see that your fairness is stronger than your fury. That's prophetic compassion, calm in chaos, dignity in disappointment. The prophet also showed compassion in judgment. When people made mistakes, he corrected them with gentleness, not humiliation. Once, a Bedouin man entered the mosque and began urinating inside it. The companions jumped up, furious and ready to stop him. But the prophet told them calmly, let him finish. Then he spoke kindly to the man, explaining that the mosque is a place of prayer and respect. The man was so touched by his kindness that he prayed, "O Allah, mercy on me and Muhammad and no one else." The Prophet smiled and said, "You have made something vast very narrow." That gentle humor, that calm teaching, that was justice built on compassion. He could have scolded the man harshly, but instead he saw ignorance as something to be guided, not punished. In our homes, schools, workplaces, this lesson applies every day. When someone makes a mistake, the easiest response is criticism. But when we respond with understanding, we build trust. A parent who corrects a child with patience instead of anger, a leader who guides instead of humiliating, a friend who listens instead of judging. They all follow the way of the Prophet A. Compassion and justice is not about ignoring wrongs. It's about addressing them with wisdom. The Prophet A forgave those who wronged him. He never allowed injustice to spread. He stood firm for the truth, yet his firmness was always wrapped in mercy. When he captured enemies in battle, he didn't torture or humiliate them. He treated them with honor. Many of them, upon seeing his character, embraced Islam willingly, because justice without mercy creates fear, but justice with mercy creates love, and love is stronger than fear. In today's world, compassion and justice is more needed than ever. We live in times where people are quick to cancel, criticize, and condemn others for their mistakes. Social media thrives on judgment, not understanding. Yet the Prophet A's life reminds us that people can change, and often kindness is the spark that ignites that change. When someone fails, instead of labeling them forever, show them a way back. That's real justice, giving people a chance to redeem themselves. Think of a leader who catches an employee making a mistake. Instead of firing them immediately, he gives them a chance to learn to improve. That one act of compassion can turn failure into loyalty. Similarly, when a friend apologizes after hurting you, forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It proves that your heart values peace more than pain. This is how compassion becomes a part of justice, not by ignoring wrongs, but by turning them into opportunities for growth. The Prophet A's justice was not about punishing every mistake. It was about healing the soul behind the mistake. He looked beyond the act and saw the heart. When a man came to him admitting his sin, the Prophet A turned away multiple times, giving him chances to repent privately. That was mercy disguised as justice, a deep understanding that human beings are flawed, but capable of goodness. In every conflict, there are two victories, one outside and one inside. The external victory is winning the argument, proving you are right. But the internal victory is winning over your ego, staying calm and compassionate even when anger calls you to act otherwise. That internal victory is the one the Prophet I always chose. That is the victory that brings true peace. Compassion and justice doesn't just change others, it transforms you. It purifies your heart from hatred, softens your soul, and connects you to divine peace. It teaches you that fairness is not cold logic. It's warmth guided by wisdom. Teaches you that the greatest revenge is not making others suffer. It's refusing to let their actions destroy your inner peace. So the next time life tests you with betrayal, anger, or injustice, remember the Prophet A. Remember Taif. Remember the conquest of Mecca. Remember the Bedouin in the mosque. Be fair, but let compassion guide your fairness. Be strong, but let mercy soften your strength. Because when justice and compassion walk hand in hand, hearts heal, souls grow, and peace becomes possible. That is the justice of the Prophet. Not revenge for the body, but redemption for the soul. strategic planning. Muslims succeeded not by numbers, but through disciplined patience, intelligence. This powerful truth echoes across every great chapter of Islamic history. From the deserts of Badr to the gates of Khaybar, the early Muslims were never defined by their size, wealth, or resources. They were defined by their strategy, unity, and faith-driven discipline. Their victories were not accidental. They were the result of wisdom, guided by purpose, patience grounded in faith, intelligence sharpened by vision. The Prophet Muhammad taught his followers that success is not measured by how much you have, but by how well you use what you have. And that lesson remains timeless for every person who seeks success in life today. Discipline was the foundation of every victory. When the Prophet led his companions into battle, he didn't send them forward in chaos. He taught them order. Each person had a role, each role had a purpose, and every purpose was tied to a higher goal, to serve Allah. Not the ego. They stood shoulder to shoulder, rich and poor, noble and ordinary, unified in purpose and direction. It wasn't numbers that made them strong. It was unity built on discipline. In our daily lives, this same principle holds immense power. Success in any field, whether career, family, or spirituality, doesn't come from abundance alone. It comes from consistency, order, patience. A person who wakes up early, plans their day, works with focus will achieve more than someone with twice the resources but half the discipline. Just as the companions of the Prophet didn't waste energy in fear or disorganization, successful people today channel their energy through focus and clarity. Think about it. In the Battle of Badr, the Muslims were only 313 against 1,000. Yet their discipline turned weakness into strength. They didn't rush. They followed commands. They didn't panic. They held their lines. They didn't rely on emotion. They relied on strategy. That is the secret of disciplined success, remaining calm and structured even when outnumbered or under pressure. Our personal struggles, this lesson is gold when life overwhelms you. Deadlines, family problems, financial stress, discipline becomes your shield. You don't give up, you plan. You don't complain, you prepare. You don't rush, you stay steady like those early believers. You fight your battles not with chaos, but with calm. True discipline is not about perfection, it's about perseverance. Then comes patience, the silent strength behind every great achievement. The Prophet and his companions never saw victory overnight. Years of hardship, persecution, and sacrifice shaped their souls before success arrived. They learned to trust the process, to plant seeds even when the soil seemed dry, to walk in darkness believing dawn would come. That's patience. Not sitting still, staying consistent even when results are delayed. In today's world, patience is rare. Want immediate results, instant success, instant happiness, instant growth. But real change, whether spiritual or personal, requires the kind of patience the Prophet embodied. Think of a student preparing for exams, an entrepreneur building a business, or a parent raising a child. All require patience guided by faith. The companions at Khaybar faced hunger, fatigue, and long sieges, yet they stayed firm because they knew that patience always precedes victory. Patience doesn't mean doing nothing, it means doing the right thing long enough for it to bear fruit. It means trusting that consistency, not haste, brings success. The Prophet once said, know that victory comes with patience, relief with affliction, ease with hardship. This statement is not just spiritual, it's strategic. It teaches that those who can control their emotions and stay steady under pressure always outlast those who act from panic or pride. Finally, intelligence, the wisdom to see beyond the moment. The Prophet A was not just a leader. He was a strategist who understood human behavior, timing, and purpose. He planned every move with foresight and clarity. In Khaybar, for example, he analyzed the strengths and weaknesses of the fortresses before striking. At Hudaybiyah, when others thought the treaty was a loss, he saw it as a doorway to long-term peace and eventual victory. His intelligence was not worldly cunning. It was divine wisdom, the kind that weighs every decision by its outcome, not its emotion. This intelligence is a lesson for every individual today. Life rewards those who think before they act, who prepare before they speak, who plan before they move. Whether it's managing finances, handling conflicts, or pursuing dreams, strategy matters. Emotional decisions may feel right in the moment, but strategic ones build lasting success. For instance, if someone insults you, intelligence tells you not to react with anger, but with grace, because silence in that moment protects your dignity and confuses your critic. If you face a challenge, wisdom says, don't rush to escape it, understand it, learn from it, and grow through it. The Prophet A showed that intelligence is not arrogance. It is humility combined with insight. It's the ability to see the bigger picture when others are trapped in emotion. Discipline, patience, intelligence are like three pillars holding the structure of success. Without discipline, efforts scatter. Without patience, hope fades. Without intelligence, strength misfires. The Prophet A blended all three. And that's why his small community of believers changed the course of history. In everyday life, you feel outnumbered by challenges. Remember this truth, you don't need more resources. You need more focus. You don't need faster results. You need stronger patience. You don't need everyone to agree with you. You need the intelligence to stay true to your path. The Muslims at Khaybar didn't win because they were the strongest or most numerous. They won because they were strategic. They planned, they persevered, and they trusted. The Prophet A's leadership turned scarcity into abundance, obstacles into opportunities, fear into faith. So when life seems overwhelming, take inspiration from that. Build discipline into your routine. Practice patience in your struggles. Use intelligence in your decisions, because victory in any form, spiritual, personal, or professional, doesn't come from numbers or noise. It comes from clarity, calm, and conviction. Remember, success is not about how much power you have, but how you use it. The Prophet taught that strength lies not in shouting louder, in standing firmer, not in moving faster, but in moving wiser. That is how the few overcame the many, through discipline that never wavered, patience that never broke, intelligence that never failed. Strategic planning, Muslims succeeded not by numbers, but through discipline, patience, and intelligence. Every chapter of history, true success has never belonged to those with the greatest armies or the largest treasures, but to those who knew how to plan, endure, and act with wisdom. The Battle of Khaybar stands as a timeless reminder that victory is not measured in numbers. It is earned through the power of the mind, the strength of patience, and the clarity of purpose. The Muslims, though fewer in number, achieved triumph not because they were stronger, because they were smarter. They used strategy, unity, and discipline as their greatest weapons. The Prophet Muhammad was not only a messenger, but also one of the greatest strategists the world has ever seen. His planning was built upon wisdom, insight, and divine guidance. Before every move, he observed, reflected, and prepared. His leadership at Khaybar was a masterclass in how to win with intelligence rather than impulse. When the Muslims approached the fortress city, they didn't rush blindly into battle. They studied the terrain, analyzed the enemy's weaknesses, and moved with patience and precision. It was not the size of their army that decided their fate. It was the depth of their strategy. This lesson applies to our lives today in ways we often overlook. Many people chase success through shortcuts or by comparing themselves to others. They think more resources mean more results. But true growth doesn't depend on what you have. It depends on how you use it. Just as the Muslims turned scarcity into strength through planning, we too can turn our small beginnings into big achievements by acting wisely, not hastily. Strategic thinking means seeing beyond the moment, understanding the bigger picture, and being patient enough to follow a plan step by step. For example, consider a young person trying to build their future. They may not have all the opportunities others have, limited resources, fewer connections, or smaller chances. But if they plan with discipline, they can still rise. They start by setting small, clear goals, just like the prophet divided his missions into achievable stages. They stay consistent even when results are slow, just as the Muslims stayed firm through long days of siege. Over time, patience turns into progress, and progress turns into victory. The prophet taught that haste is from the devil and patience is from God. This simple but powerful principle explains why strategy always beats strength. Acting in haste often leads to mistakes and regret, but acting with planning and patience brings peace and progress. Even in the most difficult moments, the prophet never acted out of anger or panic. At Khaybar, when the enemy hid behind thick walls and strong gates, he didn't command a reckless attack. He waited for the right time, analyzed the situation, and acted when the chance was best. That is intelligence, not reacting, but responding. In daily life, this mindset can change everything. When problems arise, most people panic or give up. But those who think strategically pause, breathe, and plan. If you lose your job, instead of drowning in worry, you can create a plan, learn new skills, build a small business, or start again with a new purpose. If a relationship becomes difficult, instead of reacting with anger, you can use emotional intelligence. Communicate calmly, understand the other side, resolve with wisdom. Strategy in life is about understanding that not every battle is fought with force. Some are won with patience, silence, and smart decisions. The discipline of the Muslims at Khaybar was another key part of their success. Every soldier followed orders with loyalty and trust. They didn't act on their own opinions. They followed the prophet's guidance, knowing that unity under wisdom always brings strength. In our personal and professional lives, this same discipline can turn chaos into success. When you build habits, stay consistent, and avoid distractions, your efforts multiply. Like a soldier in formation, you become focused and effective. Strategic planning also requires faith. Faith in the process and in divine timing. The prophet trusted that Allah's plan was greater than human sight. When victory didn't come immediately, he didn't lose heart. He knew that every delay was a lesson, every challenge a preparation. Many of us lose hope too soon because we expect instant results. But just as the Muslims had to wait through long days of hunger and struggle before Khaybar fell, we too must endure before we succeed. Every test refines us, and every hardship builds the strength we'll need for victory. Another part of true strategy is emotional control. The prophet taught that the strongest person is not the one who defeats others, but the one who controls himself when angry. This kind of intelligence, the ability to stay calm when others lose control, is rare, Yet it's one of the greatest keys to success. Khaybar, even when faced with betrayal and danger, the Prophet A remained composed. He treated his enemies with justice and his companions with kindness. His mind was never clouded by hatred or fear, and that clarity made him undefeatable. In our lives, we must learn to lead ourselves in the same way. When life feels unfair, when people test your patience, or when plans fail, respond with wisdom, not emotion. Think like a strategist, not reacting to the moment, but shaping it. The difference between defeat and victory is often a single decision made in calmness instead of anger. The Muslims at Khaybar showed that when your heart is disciplined, your mind patient, and your plan intelligent, even the impossible becomes possible. They didn't win because they had more. They won because they thought deeper, acted wiser, trusted longer. So in your own battles, whether they're emotional, financial, or spiritual, remember the lesson of strategic planning. You don't need an army of resources. You need the strength of patience and the light of wisdom. Every great victory begins not on the battlefield, but in the mind. Think clearly, plan wisely, wait patiently, and when the right moment comes, act fearlessly. Because just like the believers at Khaybar, success won't come from how much you have. It will come from how well you use what you have, with discipline, patience, intelligence as your greatest allies. Strategic planning, Muslims succeeded not by numbers, but through discipline, patience, intelligence. This truth is a timeless principle that defines the difference between ordinary people and extraordinary achievers. Reminds us that success is never about how much we have in our hands, but how wisely we use what we hold in our hearts and minds. The Battle of Khaybar beautifully reflects this wisdom, a victory achieved not through sheer power or numbers, through divine strategy, unshakable patience, and remarkable discipline. The Muslims at Khaybar stood out not because of their size, but because of their strength of purpose. When the Muslims arrived at Khaybar, they faced an opponent far greater in weapons, numbers, and fortifications. The Jewish tribes of Khaybar were well prepared, living behind tall, impenetrable fortresses that had protected them for generations. The Muslims, however, faith as their armor and intelligence as their sword, the Prophet Muhammad didn't lead them into battle recklessly. Instead, he displayed a level of planning and patience that turned every challenge into an opportunity. His approach teaches us that real strength is not about rushing into things, but about waiting for the right moment, understanding the situation deeply, and acting with purpose. Strategic planning begins with a vision, knowing where you are going and why. The Prophet A always had a vision that was clear, pure, and inspired by divine guidance. He didn't focus on temporary victories. His goal was always lasting peace, justice, and faith. That's why his strategies were not built around revenge or pride, but around wisdom and foresight. He observed the land, studied his opponents, and inspired his companions to stay united and calm. Every move was calculated, every step purposeful. It was this combination of faith and foresight that turned weakness into power. In our own lives, this principle can transform the way we approach our goals. Too often, people rush into decisions without thinking, reacting emotionally to situations rather than planning wisely. Whether it's in business, relationships, or personal growth, we often let impatience become our downfall. The lesson from Khaybar teaches us that true success is not in rushing, it's in readiness. Strategic people don't just act, they prepare. They think ahead, stay patient when things are slow, remain disciplined when challenges arise. Take, for example, a student who dreams of building a successful future. may not have the best resources, the most money, or the strongest support. But if they plan wisely, by managing their time, focusing on learning, and setting clear goals, they can surpass even those with more advantages. That's what the Muslims did at Khaybar. They didn't have the same strength as their enemies, but their discipline and strategy made them unstoppable. Likewise, a person who lives with purpose and patience will always overcome those who live in haste and confusion. Patience is a key ingredient in strategic success. The Prophet Ali and his companions didn't achieve victory overnight. They faced hunger, exhaustion, and uncertainty. Yet they never lost their composure. Patience doesn't mean doing nothing. It means continuing to do what's right without losing hope. It's about trusting that results will come at the right time. In daily life, patience might mean working hard at your dream job, even when promotions seem far away, or staying kind in a relationship, even when things are difficult. It means not letting frustration destroy your focus. The Prophet's patience during the siege of Khaybar shows how strength of spirit is greater than strength of arms. He could have attacked recklessly, but instead, he waited for the right opportunity. His calm leadership inspired his followers to trust the process. When the right moment came, he appointed Hazrat Ali to lead the charge, not because of his size or might, but because of his faith, intelligence, and devotion. The victory that followed wasn't just military, it was moral. It showed that success belongs to those who combine courage with calmness. Discipline was another pillar of that victory. The Muslims followed every instruction of their leader with precision and loyalty. They didn't act out of emotion, but out of obedience and order. In life, discipline is the foundation of every lasting success. A person who controls their habits, emotions, and time will always rise higher than those who act carelessly. Discipline means waking up early to pray or work, staying away from distractions, and keeping your word even when no one is watching. It's what keeps dreams alive when motivation fades. Intelligence in strategy means knowing when to act and when to wait. The Prophet taught that the wise person is the one who prepares for tomorrow. He understood human psychology, the strengths of his people, and the weaknesses of his enemies. He positioned his forces where they could succeed. He inspired unity in their hearts. He showed that wisdom is not about knowing everything, but about understanding the right thing to do at the right time. In our lives, that means not wasting energy on arguments, negativity, or unnecessary risks. It means staying focused on what truly matters. We can see examples of this every day. Think of someone facing a financial crisis. The impatient person panics and makes bad decisions, while the strategic person steps back, analyzes their situation, makes a plan, and acts carefully. Within time, they recover stronger. Or think of someone hurt by others. Instead of reacting with anger, they choose forgiveness and patience, which earns them peace and respect. This is the same wisdom the Prophet embodied: fairness, patience, and intelligence in every decision. The victory at Khaybar reminds us that success is never accidental. It is the result of purpose, patience, and planning. You don't need 1,000 people to achieve greatness. You just need a disciplined heart and a clear mind. Every great dream, every lasting achievement begins with a strategy, a quiet plan built on faith and reason. So when life tests you, remember the lesson of Khaybar. Numbers don't define strength. Discipline does. Speed doesn't create success. Patience does. Luck doesn't decide destiny. Intelligence does. The Muslims at Khaybar didn't just conquer a fortress, conquered the limits of human fear, impatience, and doubt. And their story still echoes today, reminding us that every battle, whether on a field or in our hearts, can be won when we plan with wisdom, endure with patience, act with discipline. Strategic planning, Muslims succeeded not by numbers, but through discipline, patience, and intelligence. This truth captures one of the deepest lessons from the Battle of Khaybar and from life itself, that true victory is not achieved by power or possessions, by wisdom, consistency, and faith-driven action. The Prophet Muhammad Ali showed the world that intelligence guided by faith can overcome any obstacle, no matter how great. When the Muslims stood before the mighty fortresses of Khaybar, strong walls, abundant weapons, a large army, they had every worldly reason to doubt. Yet they didn't depend on what they could see, trusted in what they believed. Their success came not from size, but from strategy. Strategic planning begins with vision. A person who has no direction is like a traveler wandering without a map, strong legs, but no destination. The Prophet A always led with vision. Every move, every command, every pause had a purpose. He didn't react to the enemy's actions. He created his own path forward. He understood the terrain, the psychology of his opponents, and the strengths of his companions. He placed people where their talents could shine best. That's what true leadership is, using wisdom to turn limited resources into maximum results. In our daily lives, this lesson is a treasure. So often, people think success belongs only to those who are rich, talented, or powerful. But the truth is, the secret of success lies in clarity, focus, and consistency. You don't need to have everything. You just need to know how to use what you have. Strategic planning means setting a goal, preparing for it with patience, staying disciplined through every challenge. It means refusing to quit even when results are delayed. The Muslims at Khaybar didn't win overnight. They endured, adapted, and trusted their plan until victory came. Discipline is one of the most powerful forces in life. It means doing what is necessary, not what is easy. It's the habit of staying true to your path, even when distractions and temptations surround you. The Prophet A taught his companions the value of order and unity. They didn't act independently or argue about leadership, followed commands with trust. Because of that discipline, every soldier became part of one body, united, focused, and unstoppable. In the same way, discipline in our personal lives makes us resilient. Imagine someone chasing a dream, perhaps starting a business, studying for a career, or working toward better health. The beginning feels exciting, but soon the difficulties come: fatigue, setbacks, self-doubt. Most people give up at that point. But those with discipline stay the course. They wake up early, stay consistent, keep believing even when progress seems invisible. That's the same spirit that carried the Muslims through the harsh days of Khaybar. The ability to keep going when it's hard, to stay strong when others stop. Patience was another key to their triumph. Patience is not weakness, it's strength under control. The Prophet A didn't rush to fight. He waited for the right time, observed the enemy's behavior, and planned carefully. He taught that haste often leads to regret, but patience leads to victory. At Khaybar, the Muslims waited for days under the burning sun, surrounded by uncertainty, yet they never lost hope. That is the beauty of patience. It keeps your faith alive when everything else seems to fail. In our everyday challenges, patience is the bridge between struggle and success. It's what keeps a mother going when raising children feels exhausting, what keeps a worker hopeful when the promotion seems far away, and what helps a believer stay calm when life tests them beyond limits. Patience doesn't mean sitting idle. It means doing your part, trusting Allah, and knowing that everything unfolds at the right time. Just as the Muslims waited for their moment to strike, we too must learn to wait for our moments, calmly, wisely, and faithfully. Then comes intelligence, the spark that turns effort into excellence. The Prophet A used intelligence not just in battle, but in life. He understood human nature deeply. He knew when to be gentle and when to be firm. At Khaybar, he didn't just fight, he strategized. He observed the structure of the forts, studied the enemy's movement, and led his people to attack from positions of strength. Intelligence is not just about knowledge. It's about insight, understanding, and timing. In life, intelligence means thinking before reacting, planning before acting, and learning from experience. It means using your mind as your strongest weapon. When someone insults you, the intelligent person doesn't respond with anger. They respond with wisdom or silence. When life throws problems, the intelligent person looks for lessons, not excuses. When challenges seem impossible, they find a way instead of finding someone to blame. That is the intelligence that brings peace and progress. Strategic thinking also means trusting divine wisdom. The Muslims didn't rely only on their own plans. They relied on Allah's help. That combination of human effort and divine trust created miracles. The Prophet A always reminded his companions, plan as if everything depends on you, but trust as if everything depends on Allah. This balance is what keeps a believer grounded, working hard without losing faith, and having faith without becoming lazy. We can apply this same mindset in every area of life. Whether you're trying to build a career, raise a family, or strengthen your character, strategy matters. You can't just wish for success, you must plan for it. Stay patient through the process, stay disciplined every day. You might not see results immediately, but every small step builds the foundation for something great. The Muslims at Khaybar didn't win because of luck. They won because of preparation, perseverance, and purpose. Their example teaches us that greatness comes to those who are calm under pressure, consistent in their efforts, confident in their purpose. Life's battles are not always fought with swords. Sometimes they are fought with decisions, focus, endurance. So when life feels overwhelming, when your dreams seem distant, when challenges seem unending, remember the lesson of Khaybar. Success does not belong to the powerful, it belongs to the patient. Victory does not belong to the loud, it belongs to the disciplined. And achievement does not belong to the many, it belongs to the wise. Be like the believers of Khaybar. Think before you act, trust before you doubt, and stay steady before you give up. Because numbers don't decide destiny, strategy does. And those who walk with discipline, patience, intelligence will always find their Khaybar, their moment of victory, no matter how impossible it may first appear.